We want to welcome everyone to our Moorish Goddesses and Queens conference call this evening, sponsored by our Moorish American government. As is a custom with Moors, we will begin with prayer, our Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, WILLIE. Amen. At this time, Moors will have a reading of our divine constitution of Moorish America. Salvation, our God, unity. The divine constitution of Moorish America. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of Moorish America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The Bylaws, Act 2. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father, God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are a part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and a parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble WILLIE the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and a partial of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, and then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, noble WILLIE, through the guidance of his Father, God Allah. Thus, Moors, the meeting has been declared open according to Act 2, the Circle 7, and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam Moors, without further delay, I want to call forth our Grand National Secretary, Dr. Asset Ramoon L., to read our subject chapter for the week, which is chapter 44, Holy Instructions from the Prophet Misery. Definitely give the sister your undivided attention. Dr. Essette, are you available more?
Islam, gratitude.
Gratitude.
Praise Allah. First, arise and give all praises to Allah and all honors to our Prophet Noble Ali, all honors to our Moorish American government, all officials of our government, and our citizens. Islam. Chapter 44, Holy Instructions from the Prophet, Misery. Feeble and insufficient as thou art, O man, in good, frail and inconstant as thou art in pleasure, yet is there a thing in which thou art strong and unshaken? Its name is misery. It is the character of thy being, the prerogative of thy nature. In thy breast alone it resided. Without thee there is nothing of it. And behold, what is its source but thine own passions? He who gave thee these gave thee also reason to subdue them. Exert it, and thou shalt trample them under thy feet. Thine entrance into the world, is it not shameful? Thy destruction, is it not glorious? Lo, men adore the instruments of death with gold and gems, and wear them above their garments. He who begetteth a man hideth his face, but he who killeth 1,000 is honored. Know thou, notwithstanding, that in this is error. Custom cannot alter the nature of truth, neither can the opinion of man destroy justice. The glory and the shame are misplaced. There is but one way for a man to be produced. There are 1,000 by which he may be destroyed. There is no praise or honor to him who giveth being to another, but triumphs and empire are the rewards of murder. Yet he who had many children had as many blessings, and he who had taken away the life of another shall not enjoy his own. While the savage curseth the birth of his son, and blessed the death of his father, does he not call himself a monster? The greatest of all human ills is sorrow. Too much of this thou art born unto, and add not unto it by thine own perverseness. Grief is natural to thee, and is always about thee. Pleasure is a stranger, and visited thee by times. Use well thy reason, and sorrow shall be cast behind thee. Be prudent, and the visits of joy shall remain long with thee. Every part of thy frame is capable of sorrow, but few and narrow are the paths that lead to delight. Pleasures can be admitted only simple, but pains rush in 1,000 at a time. As the blaze of straw faded as soon as it is kindled, so passeth away the brightness of joy, and thou knowest not what become of it. Sorrow is frequent, pleasure is rare. Pain cometh of itself. Delight must be purchased. Grief is unmixed, but joy wanted not its alloy of bitterness. As the soundest health is less perceived than the latest malady, so the highest joy toucheth us less deep than the smallest sorrow. We are in love with anguish. We often fly from pleasure. Pleasure. When we purchase it, cast it not more than it is worth. Reflection is the business of man. A sense of his state is his first duty. But who remembereth himself a boy? Is it not in mercy, then, that sorrow is allotted unto us? Man foreseeth the evil that is to come. He remembereth it when it is past. He considereth not the thoughts of affliction wounded deeper. He considereth not that the thoughts of affliction wounded deeper than the affliction itself. Think not of thy pain, but when it is upon thee, and thou shalt avoid the most hurt thee. What most hurt thee? He who weepeth before he needed, weepeth more than he needed. And why? But that he loveth weeping. The stag weepeth not till the spear is lifted against him, nor do the tears of the beaver fall till the hound is ready to seize him. Man anticipated death by the apprehension of it, and the fear is greater misery than the event itself. Be always prepared to give an account of thine action, and the best death is that which is least premeditated. Islam.
Islam. Gratitude, Sister Grand National Secretary, for that most beautiful reading of our subject chapter for the week. At this time, Lord, first of all, I would like to rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving a most special honor to our Prophet, Noble Jew Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Moorish American government, all of our officials, staff, Swift angels, muftis, divine ministers, most especially our Moorish kin. Giving honor to our Moorish Goddesses and Queens conference call this evening. I will be your host instructor. I am Hatshepsut Rakat Mayat Anpu Tutankhamun Bey, Grand National Secretary of State. Again, we want to welcome each and every one of you. At this time, Ward, I just wanted to review our subject matter for this evening. Sisters must help their brothers take their place in the affairs of nations. That sisters must help their brothers take their place in the affairs of nations. And as our Grand National Secretary stated, we have 6 master words for study: place, affairs, nation, comity of nations, violate, and cling. We're going to be coming from several reference points. I will try to, definitely more you know to have your pens and papers handy, because I'm going to try to get all of this in within the allotted time so, we're not leaving too late in the evening. But all of this is critical, especially that we set the proper foundation for what it is that we're supposed to be about. We definitely need to have, as a Moorish peoples, a clear conception of the work that we're called to do. We're here, make no mistake about it, we are here to aid and assist our prophet in the uplifting of fallen humanity by teaching our people their nationality along with their divine creed, which are the missing 2/5 of persons. We're classified still as 3/5 of all other persons according to the United States constitutional law. So that means that we are still, in their laws, listed as property. Our prophet brought to us the other 2/5, which is nationality and divine creed. He also gave us the keys and the methods to be able to link ourselves with the families of nations. But in order to be a nation, you have to have laws in place. You have to have government in place. You definitely have to have that oneness of thought. You have to recognize yourself as one free national name. You have to see what other nations have that makes them a special nation, and then you have to find out where yours is. Well, our prophet lets us know that he brought us everything that it takes to save us as a nation. All we have to do is take it and save ourselves. So we can't look to anything outside of ourselves to make us free. We have got to have the will, the self-determination, and the desire to demonstrate freedom, which just happens to be one of our principles, the 5 highest principles known to man, also in our flag: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Now, I thought it necessary more that we go back to how we got to this special state of affairs in reference to our 60 million people that are still basically in an unconscious state, suffering from what the prophet termed as mental slavery. And a lot of times our people don't realize that they are actually walking around, if you will, in minimum security. They're looking at well, I'm not locked up. I'm not in an institution or a prison system or what have you, but as long as your mind remains on a lockdown status, as long as you are worshiping gods outside of yourself, as long as you are succumbing to those lower desires, the lower aspect of yourself, then we have to realize we are still under that umbrella of mental slavery. The majority of our people are still buried in that shallow grave which consists of these constitutional laws, where every nation knows who our people are except us. So can you hear me? Are you there?
Yes, sis, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, gratitude, because I kept hearing mute and unmute, but all is well. All right, so Moors, what I wanted to start with was portions from the Willie Lynch letter, which is in essence the making of a slave. And for those that are not familiar with Willie Lynch, in essence, a little bit of background. This Willie Lynch was standing on the banks of the James River. He happened to be a slave owner, and the time period was 1712. He was speaking to those Europeans, if you would, so-called white men. They're actually Europeans. He was speaking to the colony of Virginia, dealing with the slaveholders at that time. The time frame was 1712. Now, if you look at that, a special date, 1712 is actually 301 years ago. Over 300 years ago. And we still see the remnants of this special making of a slave still prevalent within the psyche of the Moors, okay? Willie Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies. So he was invited to the colony of Virginia to show them how to go about the business of breaking in slaves to make sure that this would be a continuous cycle for hundreds of years. Now, I just want to pull out portions of this so that we can kind of understand the psyche of our sisters here in this point in time, okay, just to give us a foundation of why it is so necessary that we focus on character building and, be able to clean up our thought patterns so we can indeed function as a nation of people dealing with a pure and clean nation of people. All right, let's see. Gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord, 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome, now this is going back to their descendants, ancestors, while Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You're not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. You know what your problems are. I don't need to elaborate. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. I'm here to introduce you to a method of solving them. I have in my bag here foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. That is back in 1712. We are 301 years later, and we still see this demonstration going on strong, okay? Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. So just think about it. Are we not still demonstrating those same weaknesses in this era of time? The prophet lets us know that this is a part of our lower self, okay? Let's continue on. Take a simple little list of differences and think about it. On the top of my list is age. The second is color or shade. Then you have intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in a valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south. You heard of South Side Chicago, up the street, around the corner. I'm interjecting my demonstration, okay? Have fine hair, coarse hair. What do we teach our children in reference to our hair? Do we say you got good hair, bad hair? Come on now. If the slave is tall or short. Now, if you have a list of differences, I'll give you an outline of action. But I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust. Envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. Think about what this European is saying to these slave owners. He's saying that these are a reverse of what the prophet brought to us. He's saying that distrust is a lot stronger than us being able to trust one another. So that means that when you see your brother or sister mentally under that banner of mental slavery, you want to automatically be suspicious, have doubt, looking at your brother or sister cockeyed, but you might not understand why. This was embedded into our psyche for hundreds of years because, hey, we were classified and still are as property. Moving on. When you have the black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, it shall become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, the young black male against the old black male. Use the dark-skinned slaves against the light-skinned slaves. Use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. And I wanted to bring this point out because we have a lot of our sisters suffering under the demonstration right now that they have got to compete with their brothers. Okay? Let's move on. If you use these tactics, my European brothers, for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. I say nay, okay? They weren't looking at a prophet having been sent to us. Now, then it goes down to the breakdown of let's make a slave. Okay, so it speaks about what they did. No, let's go down even further. Because the worst of slavery was done on our African godmen, okay, in front of the sister. Let me just go down to that aspect. And they were also speaking about that all of these principles must be employed for the orderly good of the nation. What nation are they talking about? Are they talking about securing the nation for the Africans? Are they talking about securing their posterity for their earthly salvation? At the present point in time, He was speaking about that the Asiatics are sleeping while you're awake. They may kill you in your sleep, so you can't rest. And they're dangerous near the family house. It requires too much labor for you to watch them. So therefore, they have to put guidelines in place so that they can be able to rest in their beds in peace, knowing that he's going to have vehicles so much so that he's going to secure the sister in a position of guarding his demonstration to the detriment of the Asiatic brother. Pay little attention to the generation of the original breaking. So, the first ones they brought over, later for them. But we want to be careful. Well, we want to ensure that we concentrate on the future generations. So that's talking about the children, the babies, okay? If you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. So therefore, when the offspring is old enough to work, she'll deliver the child up to the European, okay? For her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. Now, compares our people, the breaking of a slave to the breaking of horses, okay? Then it goes on to get specific about the breaking process of the African woman. And I want you to pay close attention, sisters and brothers, okay? Because a lot of our mindset and psyche is still revolving around these illusions having been put in place back in the 1700s, 300 years ago. The breaking process of the African woman. Take the female. Run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. Slavery is business. Ain't nothing personal. This is business, okay? If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her, okay? Now, before we got to that point, bear in mind that what they did with the brothers, they took the brothers and tied their legs, had two horses going two separate ways, might have burnt them up, did all kinds of atrocities in front of that sister and in front of the children, so it would create a psychological fear in that sister where she felt that she was defenseless and she had no choice but to assume that position of being independent because the image of her African God-man was destroyed in her psyche. So they say, okay? Let's continue. Take care not to kill her. For in doing so, you spoil good economics. Again, everything's about the money, okay? Understanding is the best thing. Now, we have reversed the relationship in her natural, uncivilized state. Now, bear in mind, they called us uncivilized to justify the naught, to justify why we could be allowed to be slaves. But you have to remember, we were the founders of civilization. So you have to reverse, because Europeans speak with forked tongue. Okay, hold on. We have reversed the relationship in her natural, uncivilized state. And we know that our sisters were not or never uncivilized, okay? She would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male. Now, excuse these words, but this is Europe talking to Europe, okay? And she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring. So that means that in Africa, the sister let her sons be free. There was no fear there, okay? She would raise, okay, now, but in this demonstration under slavery, she's going to raise her male offspring to be dependent like her. We reverse the nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence, by her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed. The ordeal caused her to move from her psychologically dependent state, which she was naturally dependent upon the African God man, okay? But because of all of these horrendous things that she suffered or she was allowed to see, she became from a psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. For fear of the young man's life, she's going to psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offspring to be psychologically independent. What do you got? You have the nigger woman out front and the nigger man behind and scared. This is the perfect situation of sound sleep and economics. Okay? Now you ain't got to worry about if your slaves are going to run away or anything like that. You can sleep soundly. For out of this frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. He's a good tool now, ready to be tied to the horse. Now, I'm going to stop there, okay? I just wanted to bring that out because we have to understand the psychology of why we are here in this special state today. Our subject matter is sisters must help their brothers take their place in the affairs of men. First of all, you cannot be a man in peace. You can't be a woman in harmony. You can't be a child in love if you don't have a nation to support, guide you, and be that foundation of security, okay? We have got to be able to see the God in one another, but we have got to reverse that mental programming. Here enters Prophet Noble Durali, who lets us know that, you know what? First of all, you demonstrate with sin when you're claiming any of these names that allude to slavery. When you call yourself black, that's a slave label. When you call yourself Negro, when you call yourself all kinds of words outside of what your nationality is, you are committing a sin against the Creator because they didn't take any black people out of Africa. We are of Moorish descent. Moving forward, we want to give some quotes from Marcus Mogaziah Garvey, who is the forerunner of Prophet Noble Durali. Our success educationally, industrially, and politically is based upon the protection of a nation founded by who? Founded by ourselves. And the nation can be nowhere else but in Africa. Of course, Marcus Garvey being the forerunner, he's speaking about going back in thought, back in mind, okay? Liberate the minds of men, and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men. The whole world is run on a bluff. So what Marcus Garvey was stating in that particular quote is that the Europeans designed, and it's in Willie Lynch's letter as well, designed a series of illusions. It's almost like a bunch of balls moving around in the vacuum. You know how in the lottery where they show these balls moving around until the various numbers settle down, you know, for the lottery? Well, these are what the Europeans put out there as far as psychological illusions, so that we're constantly revolving around, I don't need a man's thought pattern, or these brothers ain't about nothing, or he got a criminal record, or all of these thoughts revolving around on their own access to the detriment of supporting your own people, because, number one, you're dealing with self-hatred. So if you're hating yourself, then it stands to reason that you're going to hate somebody who looks just like you. So we are continuing, under the banner of mental slavery wars, we are continuing that psychological frozen state as sisters if we don't adhere to the principles, the laws of not only our Creator, because He brought divine instructions to put you back in your proper place, okay? And also sent us a prophet to return us back to that state that we had lost. So number one, we have to realize that we have a nationality, which means that we are part of a nation of people. And then number two, we also have to realize that we have a divine creed. Moving on to the prophecies of Noble WILLIE. Moors, be yourself. That's also part of these psychological balls that are turning around, spinning on its axis, these illusions, because the Europeans are masters of illusion. They're masters of pacifying the minds of their slaves. Look at the sports, and I'm not knocking any of this, but I'm trying to show you the history of why we are still in the state that we are in. A beggar nation cannot attain to its highest degree of spirituality. Why are you going to the slave master looking for freedom? Does that make any kind of sense? What makes you think that 300 years ago, when they are dealing with their posterity as a nation, yeah, I got to teach this to my children's children, so we all can get paid on the ignorance of the energetic. And it speaks about this in this WILLIE Lynch demonstration. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. It even speaks about the language. We must completely annihilate the mother tongue. Why is that? Now, they had to use code words around their slaves. So, in essence, when they were speaking about the, our crops, they weren't talking about the things that they were planting in the ground. Their crops were the slaves. But if they taught the slaves every nuance of their language, then in a few years, they wouldn't be demonstrating on the level of slavery. So they had to have some kind. That's why the European court system right now is nothing but a barrel of snakes. Being a fool is one of the basic ingredients of any incidents to the maintenance of the slavery system. That's a mess. Keep them dumb. Keep them dumbed down. You can put a book out there right now. They're not going to read it. We got to think about these things, Moors. Okay? We really have to think about these things when we want to sit and look at our brother and sister cockeyed. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Why are you so miserable when you have everything? You have everything. 300 years ago, our brothers and sisters, we realized that slavery was a divine issue. But Allah sent to us a prophet. But yet, even in the path of wisdom, we want to still do what? Toil after folly. And I'm speaking in generalities more. I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody. I'm just dealing with the status of the times right now. Back to the prophecies of Noble WILLIE. I come to set you free from that state of mental slavery that I found you in. We still be walking around, yeah, I'm black and I'm proud. ETC had it not been for the advent of Prophet Noble WILLIE. But because the Western Freemasonry is so embedded in this Western society, and Western Freemasonry is not for us, it's about us. And we're the only ones that don't know that the Europeans are in secret honoring our demonstration. We don't even know that the demonstration is ours, because we want to contribute everything to the culture of the Greeks and the Romans. But this was by design. Do you think that a slave owner or a slave master is going to let you know that, you know what, when I dragged you off the shores, You had your own culture. You were civilized than us as a people. You were kings and queens. You knew how to work in harmony. So when the prophet brings us a chapter about social duties, we want to look like, oh, that'll never happen. That's because you don't know your history. You don't know how you are put together. You are, in essence, a God. You are dealing with a God man. You're dealing with a God woman. But if you look at it from the universal order of things, there is no gender on the level of spirit. So there should be no need for a demonstration of competition. Now, we often hear about competition between sisters. Yeah, sisters can't get along. You better not have two women in the kitchen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another ball of illusion. But the thing about it is, what about the competition between the sisters and the brothers? No, I'm the only one in this house is going, better listen to me or he can get out. This is my house. Does that not sound familiar? And yet on this television, everything, you got whole channels now, Lifetime channel. There's nothing about how can I kill him. This one had an affair. This one over here is murderous. I got to lock this one up. How I can scheme and this and that. Promoting another psychological ball of illusion for you to spin around down that a special path. Meanwhile, your blessings are being eaten by another. All other nations know who you are, and you too afraid to pick up what's yours because you don't even have a clue of what's yours. I'm going to stop the European from thinking and start you thinking for your own good. Do we not see that nowadays? Children, one day you are going to love me. During the time of the prophet, there were so many demonstrations to try to take the prophet out because of jealousy and hatred and envy. And they were actually walking with the prophet, Noble Jirali. And still, did he have a European education? Where did he come from? Did he graduate? All kinds of things that we were perpetuating the remnants of Willie Lynch. Not realizing that we're still revolving over and over again in a bunch of falsehoods. And what did our prophet say? Act 7, learn how to love instead of hate. Why is that necessary? Well, number one, if you don't see yourself as one family, if you don't see yourself as one nation, you first got to start with, I got to love my brother or sister up the street. How can I talk about establishing a nation of people, going over there, straightening out my brothers in the East, and I can't stand so-and-so? Really? Well, you must not have had enough of being singed and burnt up. Obviously not. Or you don't think that there's such thing as channel cars at the ready or concentration camps at the ready. I'm quite sure other people that suffered under slavery didn't think that was going to happen to them as well. But here, if you have an opportunity, think about your ancestors that did not have the opportunity, that you have at this point in time. And yet we have the will. This is where self-determination comes in. You have to want the freedom. You have to apply your will. You have to come out of that muck and mire demonstrating on a sluggish level, thinking that, you know what, the devil made me do it, or the devil's under the ground, or the devil's in the form of the assistant grand chief, or the devil's in the form of the secretary of state, or you know what? Yeah, she said this, but I'm going to scheme and turn her words around because I don't like how I don't know what it is. I just don't like her. So I would get on the phone, pick up the phone, and go around the back door to crack the side demonstration, and because it's just something not right about it. I'm gonna sit here until I find I know it's gonna fall. It can't last. All of these, the prophet says, doubt is of your own raising. But if you don't know how a thing is put together, you're not going to put value on it. These are why these divine laws were instituted. First of all, we thinking that we left them alone, because how many of the Negro votes does it take to equal a European vote? And you know what? Wait a minute. Why are we the only ones that got to vote in every 10, 20 years just so we can vote? where the prophet said the 14th and 15th Amendment doesn't even apply. Moving on. Children, one day you are going to love me. So that means there was a time when you had those hating the prophet. You still have those to this day. Hate the prophet. Don't even have a clue, but because some grand poobah over there said that I'm the reincarnated of the blah, 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 then misuse the sincerity of the people, but yet in order for you to get your nationality and you can work your way through these European courts, you got to pay me $500, the title to your house, I want your social security number, name, and butt print. Really? And then getting paid, getting fat off of using pieces and remnants of Prophet Noble Jurali and his lessons. While the Moors are, you know what, stop touching me, stop hitting me. Stop hitting me. I don't like what you're doing. The prophet told us, wake up and don't go to sleep anymore. Moving on. There's a reason we have social duties in our Quran to teach us how to demonstrate on a national level. Prophet didn't bring nothing. Really? What about magistrate and subject? Moving on. We have subject matter is sisters must help their brothers take their place in the affairs of nations. So we got to get out of that false, and I'm just dealing with the point of enlightenment, all right? Again, we instruct and encourage our brothers and sisters to leave your passions at the door because we are here to uplift and build. Steel sharpens steel, as our Grand Sheik states. So that false sense of dominance that we may have, that false sense of arrogance, ain't nobody going to tell me what to do. Where did you get it from? You didn't have that naturally. Naturally, we are humble people. Naturally, we're about love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We know how to civilize the world. We did it before. The prophet has put that assignment on us to do again. But we can't talk about civilizing someone else when at the drop of a hat or at an ill wind, we want to sit there and get ready to take somebody out. Come on now. But we all in this frying pan getting ready to get burnt up, and nobody wants to step up to the plate and say, you know what, I got a choice. It's either let me continue playing in my lower self or get serious about this national and divine movement. It's either take time out to play in my lower self, get upset at every whim, twist, or turn because the Grand Sheik, I think he was talking about me. Really? And the chairman, good gracious me, did you hear what he said? Did you hear? You're talking about our officials that you need to demonstrate support, patronage, and encouragement. Do you realize that the government of Moorish America is really the only functioning government on these shores? Do you realize that? Even before the shutdown of the so-called European demonstration. Do you even realize that, Moors? You are what you accept. Moving on, we have 6 master words, place. And I'm going to open up the floor. But before I do that, I want to read briefly from our prophecies and hadiths, Moorish literatures, and proclamations, dealing with page 25, a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. First sentence, the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family, bearing one free national name. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. So that means the citizens of Italy, free national government, according to the Italian constitution, all of the people in Italy are Italians. The people of Ghana, the citizens of Ghana, according to their Ghanaian national constitution, are all of one family, bearing one free national name, Ghanaians. The citizens of Germany, according to their German national constitution, are all of one family, bearing one free national name. Now here comes Joe Blow, Negro, black, and colored. I'm this, I'm that. I'm up, I'm down. I'm boopa-loopa-loop, whatever, okay? So my little clique can't stand your little clique, but what did the prophet say? Because before the advent of Prophet Noble Lee, you thinking that Negro's okay, black's all right, and colored maybe a little old-fashioned, but yeah, I'll accept that too. So, but we don't want to give credit or honor to Prophet Noble Lee. But we have all these splinters and offshoots, and everybody wants to take a piece of what the prophet brought, but they don't want the responsibility. So if I want to go to the UN under an NGO, I can do that because you can't tell me what to do. Come on now. So when it comes down to a Negro, black, colored thought pattern or mentality, then you want to be everything but what the prophet told you you're supposed to be. And in that one free national name of Moorish American, that's dealing with your descent. Okay, that's dealing with your ancestry. That's dealing with your history. That's connecting you to the family of nations. Without it, you're nothing. Without it, you're still 3/5 of all other persons and property and revolving around on these psychological axis of illusions, thinking you all that. But yet, you cannot be a woman in peace without a nation. You cannot be a man when you see your woman out there supporting the European dogma and principles, uplifting Rome and tearing down her own mess, spitting on her own brother that looks like her, but yet want to raise children to be like the Europeans trying to be like us. Come on now. Somebody has to wake up and smell the tea. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classes undesirable. Does the prophet know what he's talking about? And are subject to all inferior names. Is a black person an inferior name? Yes. Because it's a man-made term, and it's a slave term. They're subject to all inferior names, abuses, mistreatments that the citizens can't bestow upon them. Sister driving haphazardly in D.C., lost a life, child in the car. I'm going to shoot you first, ask questions later. You think that's a mistreatment, Moorish National? You think you can do better, Moorish National? Not running behind 50 million different names. Europeans laughing at you. Yeah, it'll be about another 300 years. They ain't got it yet. I got them so well trained to kill each other. Okay, well, I'm just going to take my second, third vacation this month. And it's a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that allude to slavery. I took two words out of here for study. I took violate. This is what the prophet said. It's a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws. We got a divine constitution and bylaws. And if we're not studying 25/7 as our Grand Sheik and Chairman state and our Assistant Grand Sheik state, we violating our own laws. That means we disrespecting and honoring our own laws, when we hating somebody, when we demonstrating misery and all kinds of degraded ills and then we end up with diseases. We violate our own laws that were specifically handed to us by our own prophet. When they violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government, we're talking about Moorish America, our Moorish American government, our nation of Moorish America. Say it 20 million times till it gets embedded in your psyche. And cling. What is clinging? To the names and principles that delude to slavery. That means I ain't trying to let it go. Because it's worked for me all these years. I'm not trying to let it go. Yeah, I hear what y'all talking. Violate. To break a law or an agreement. Breach. Contaminate. Contravene. Defy. Disobey. Disregard. Disrupt. Encroach. To err. E-R-R. Infract. Infringe. To meddle. You got people like to meddle with the laws. To offend. To oppose. To resist. To sin. To tamper with. To trample on. To transgress. Trespass. And what's the opposite of violate? To observe and obey. But yet, sometimes we as sisters got a problem with submission and obedience are the lessons of our life. What about clinging? Prophet said you want to cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. When you cling to something, you are adhering closely to it. So that means that you don't realize, you really don't, that you trying to maintain your independent status as a sister is in actuality supporting the status quo of a slave master that's still getting paid off your own ignorance, old foolish one. Cling, to stick to hold tight, to grasp or embrace, to cleave, remain close, remain attached as to an idea, a memory, to cohere, to cherish, to freeze, that word frozen psychological state. You're still in that frozen psychological state. To stay put. I don't know about going over there because I still got the memory of what they did to my African God man, and by now, 300 years later, he ain't about nothing. Got to wake up. To associate. And the opposite of that is to let go and unfasten. So, as sisters, I want to read something, and I want you to look up the place and affairs, and I'm going to open up the floor for those definitions because that's very key when it comes down to our brothers. Our brothers take their place in the affairs of nations. Where do you think that puts you, oh God, woman? In ancient Kemet, women enjoyed complete equality in society. They had the same rights as men. This cultural righteousness was reflected in the practice of religion as well, or it might be said that the practice of righteousness in religion supported the practice of righteousness in society. So we knew how to deal with the laws of Ma'at in our society. That's why the prophet brought these lessons to us. He was the ancient Promethean Adat master. He's known as the professor. The importance of equality between the sexes cannot be overstated in our times. Sexism, the subjugation of women through government decrees, laws, culturally entrenched prejudices, male delusions of superiority have led to a world in which the fabric of society, marriage, and family are disintegrating and causing interpersonal strife, stress, and anxiety in society. We see that today. What family? These conditions cause an intensification of egoism. That's dealing with that vanity. And the bondage to the world for both men and women. And lead to mental and physical disease, frustration, and even violence, as well as spiritual stagnation. So this is in line with our prophet saying that we were the founders of civilization. In the ancient Promethean mystery system, we recognized the gods in each other. There was no need for competition. We realized that God had no gender. You know, there was no need to fight amongst one another. Everyone had their special duty. When you're dealing with Anpu, this brought about the character of being able to discipline one's mind. And see, we're on this foe dealing with misery. And that's an undisciplined mind when you're dealing with misery and all kinds of demonstrations, okay? When the mind and its wave-like thought vibrations are under control, the way is open to spiritual realization. Everything is about know thyself and our Father God Allah, okay? Peace and harmony do not necessarily imply an outer situation of calm. Things could be raging in this on this plane of things made manifest, but that has nothing to do with your peaceful and harmonious state within, if you know how to master your own mind. That's why we have these lessons of character building, Moors. It's not just something that we speak just to be hearing ourselves speak. It's a reason the prophet said, I'm going to repeat myself till we get it right, okay? Anpu represents the dawn when darkness turns to light. That means you're receiving the truth. You recognize in the fact that you are a spirit and a part of the great God Allah. So that means that anything that you are looking at or worshiping or honoring outside of yourself, that's a pagan demonstration. So there should be no fear. There should be no weakness. There should be no misery. The spirit never weeps. You find yourself crying, then that means there's a weakness somewhere that you have got to address. But we have got to take the responsibility for our own mental state, our own mental diseases. The prophet told you what it was, but he didn't just leave it there. He gave you the remedies. All we got to do is take it, as Brother Justice states, and save yourself. So the things that the prophet has brought to us allows a student to diligently watch your mind in order to promote the thoughts which are divinely inspired. So I'm going to open up the floor now, and I want to go over the definition of place and affairs. And I'd like to ask more to keep your definitions to a minimum because we want to have an opportunity for our brothers and sisters to speak on this special and most important subject. And sisters, I give honor to all of my sisters, okay, because we have suffered much and severely, but we also have been given the keys in order for us to aid and assist our prophet in righting our situation and righting our Moorish nation. Put the brother up in his special place, okay? Let him take his place in the affairs of nations. When you put the brother in his special place, you are going to have your special place, and everyone is going to be able to be secured in their own nation. So let us just find out exactly what the definition of place is. Start with your phone. First more.
Islam.
Dr. Shatat.
Place. First I rise, I give praise to Allah, honor to His holy and divine prophet, Noble Joali, honor to the government in which we all live, honor to the officials of this government, most of all, honor to the citizens in the chapter of the week, and honor to you, Setsu. Place. Portion or space actually occupied by a person or thing. Islam.
Islam. Gratitude, Dr. Shatar Ramon. And next more.
Islam.
Islam more.
Bartholomew Thomas Day, Chicago territory. First I rise giving all praises to my Father God Allah, and all honor and respect to my prophet, and all honor and respect to my government officials and citizens. Place. A way for admission or transit. Physical environment. State. Physical surroundings. Islam.
Islam. Gratitude, Dr. Bartholomew Thomas Day. We appreciate both of our brothers' measures. Next more.
Islam.
Islam.
Gratitude. All praises to Allah.
Gratitude.
High honor to our holy and perfect prophet, honor to our theocratic government, and honor for the beautiful goddesses of Supreme class. For place, I have a station. Peace.
Islam, gratitude, sis. The next word I want us to define gratitude to all of my Moorish kin for their definitions is affairs. AFFAIRS.
Islam.
Islam, Dr. Shatat.
Affairs. Totally. Wait. Let me get it right. Affairs. Totality of practical matters with which a person or group is involved. Islam.
Gratitude, more. Next, more. Affairs.
Islam,
sis.
Gratitude. For affairs, I have business.
Praise Allah. Gratitude, sis. And last, more on affairs.
Islam.
Yeah. Abdul Ahmed Bey, Divine Minister of Chicago. We rise, giving praise to our Father God Allah, and honor to His illustrious love talk, El Haj Sharif Abdul Ali. Honor to our Moorish American theocratic government and our citizens and officials. Affairs are agendas. Islam.
Gratitude, Moors, for that definition of affairs. Now, my definitions for place. Status. And I was looking at the status as a god, the status as a free man, a specific function or duty, the proper sequence or relationship, to put in proper order, to arrange, to put in its proper place, to put into the proper hands, to give an order to the correct position. So we're speaking about sisters helping their brothers take their place, take their correct position. What is their correct position in Moorish America? Are they supposed to be operating out of fear, or are we supposed to be aiding and assisting them to realize and come into realization of their own, that they are the gods, just like we be the goddesses, okay? For affairs, my definition was anything to be done, anything requiring action or effort. And as the sister stated, business, concerns, a matter of commercial or public interest, a special function, business, or duty. Take their place, their correct position in the affairs of nations. And we know a nation is dealing with people that share the same culture, language, heritage, etc., a particular territory or what have you. We're speaking about the Moorish nation. We're speaking about Moorish America. And when we're dealing with the colony of nations, and this is mentioned in Exhuming of a Nation, you're dealing with the courtesy between nations as in respect shown by one country for the laws, the judicial decisions, and the institutions of another country. So it's one nation honoring another nation. You're speaking about mutual civility. So you know how to be civil, not only with your brother or sister, not only with those other Moorish nationals, you also learn how to be civil to other nationalities. Mutual harmony, friendship, and respect, especially between or among nations or people, to be courteous and friendly. Does that not sound like an eye coming right out of social duties? So, Moors, that's my measure this evening. Hopefully this has been of an aid and assistance because I did this according to what Allah blessed me with. Hopefully this was able to be of some benefit. I want to give gratitude to all of my Moorish kids.
When I was listening to Sister Perez, I'll give her demonstration and the things she go through trying to uplift humanity and our people.
More.
Yeah, I was over here. I was trying to speak, but it was muted out.
Praise Allah.
Islam. I'm in here. Y'all came to my rescue. Islam. On this day I rise and give all praise to Allah and honors to His holy prophet, our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, El-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We want to give honors to all of our Moorish kin who demonstrated tonight, and you, Sister Grand National Secretary of the State, Sister Eshepsu. We want to give honors to you, Sister, because you never ceased to swing that scimitar, and we know you did it in defense, because you was indeed showing, how we must demonstrate on a level of unity, especially when you talk about the sisters standing behind the brothers, and aiding and assisting them, that they may go into, you can say, the affairs together as a whole. And I look at the unity itself between husband and wife, the Moorish goddess, the Moorish god man. When you see this in itself represents a governmental structure. So this structure is held together by our holy covenant, which is the holy covenant of the Asiatic nation. This unity comes about on all levels, especially when they are moving in unison, and this will cause a harmonious surrounding. We already know that the Moorish man was seen as a threat by the European more so all over than our goddess. Matter of fact, in the Willie Lynch demonstration, he said basically if you break that man in the presence of this woman, she won't even respect him as a man. Also she will train her young to come up, and be physically strong but mentally weak. And therefore she would train him in the insufficiency, her in the insufficiency of knowledge. Those who are coming forth and being born. So we are receiving an education here now that brings us out of a state of misery, that brings us out of a state of suffering, that brings us out of a state of being a misnomer, NBC, Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian, demarcated not only on a physical aspect but demarcated mentally, because there's a demarcation that was placed within the realms of the household of the Moorish family, to where there's also a division to where the parents, are not getting along with the children not getting along with the parents. This was placed into manifestation through slavery. So it takes that strong unity, especially with our Moorish daughters, aiding and assisting that God man, and aiding and assisting, therefore, humanity, because this is what our holy prophet came doing, uplifting, humanity, because we have to respect each other, because without the goddess, there could be no God man, and without the God man, there could be no goddess. So we say Islam to divine unity, and we say Islam to this love which flows throughout our community. And we say peace and love divine and gratitude for allowing me to speak. And Sister Fatima will be back on again in due time.
Praise the Lord. We are definitely looking forward to that. Much blessings and gratitude to you and your household, more. Gratitude.
It's
Praise
long.
the Lord. Yeah, and I'm trying to make sure, excuse me, I'm trying to make sure I have every word about Assistant National Grand Sheik as well. Gratitude, more. I'm not sure if Grand National Chairman is on location or not. It's from Dr. Akhenaten Pertin Haru, Tutankhamun Bay. Are you there, more?
He moved off.
Okay, gratitude, Sister Mecca. We appreciate you, more. Without further delay, we want to call forth our National Grand Sheik of Moorish America, of the Royal Council, Dr. G.D. Radford L., Divine Minister. Islam, more, are you there?
Islam Grand Secretary of State.
Islam.
Thank you very much for that very powerful lesson we got this evening, and to all the ones who spoke before we did, honors to them too. Let us give a lot of praise for allowing us one more day to bear witness to his benevolence and the truth that he done to each of us to set all our souls free. Praise Allah for his benevolent works. And high honors to our brother, man, and prophet. He is the last prophet in these days and time, our prophet, Noble Ali, El Sharif. Give honors to our officials, our staff, as well as Grand Mufti Corps, our divine ministers, as well as our angels, and those ones who are true and faithful to you, Moorish American Muslims. We are eternally grateful. We don't have much to say because everything has already been said. The path has been laid open. Very powerful lesson to the goddess and queens. As usual, you have a tendency to swing that scimitar to directions of naught, bring about all, and set one straight and direct the course of our affairs. A mother does for her children in the nation, to give us the appropriate instructions and guidance. And she lays down, if you will, at night with her king, and they revolve on higher things and the duties that they perform on the forthcoming day. They give the instructions when she gives counsel to the king. The king makes a decision, or he holds it in abeyance. But the instruction on, she's going to make sure that it's being delivered to the little ones, and the little ones in their honor and reverence of motherhood carries it out with the swiftness. They don't ask questions, or they don't get mad and pat and say they're not going to do it, and it's not my turn to do it, or I can't do it today, I got to do it tomorrow, can I delay? When she get the instruction, they fly. And this is what our lessons teach us. They teach us about how the sister runs her household, and how when she goes out in the neighborhood, she doesn't listen to gossip, loose lips, and to talking about other people. She's always there on the presence to give keen advice and uplifting motivation to all that she may encounter. But trusted be, they wouldn't have came to her if it wasn't that time for her to give that instruction. So we give our goddesses and queens high honors, like the sister, the Grand Chief correctly pointed out. It was through the woman that we got here, but also we to recognize the man, because we can only come through that act, and having come through that, we know now, since we're here, we went through these lessons of various schools of thought, that we are not the body nor are we the soul, but we draw the we the spirit, and it is the spirit of this love that we rekindle the flames and the passions and desires that hold us together as a people. Yeah, we are at odds at times because we still have loose and unbridled nature in us that had come from the nether world. And now that we've got the appropriate instruction, it's upon us individually as well as collectively to take a hold of that bridle and steer flesh to a destiny that is not uncertain nor unknown. It is truly an honor to be in the midst of our sisters, because we know that sisters in this government now know the trick that was put up on us, and they know how ones misused them and also abused them. We know about the Willie Lynch syndrome and how one traumatized her and left her frozen in her fearful state of seeing her God-man and king torn asunder, and we know they had what we call a rippling effect upon her, and it affected the seed that she was carrying. Out of her fear, she would let her seed be vocal, or what we call disobedient towards the so-called slave master. But she would tell him to be quiet and hold his tongue, and etc. But at the same time, she didn't know that she was making him weak. But she made him strong enough physically so that he could go out there and produce the labor. But this is what she had been conditioned to do. And now that we know the truth of the matter,